Let's start from the very beginning. When I was a little niño, okay? A little niño, and I was between the age. So I was born like most of you. We were all born at one point in our lives. And what happens is we're born as this little crystalline child, high vibration. And what happens is there we are, all angelic and stuff. And then what happens is something begins to happen where we start to think that we're less than divine. And we start to learn language, and many times that language then sculpts the way that we see ourselves. And we're told growing up, this is who we are, and that's who we then believe we are, whoever we're told we are. And we start to develop this ego construct. Now, this is what happened. So my parents divorced when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. No, maybe I was like 4 or 5. I think I was 4 or 5 years old. My parents divorced. I have one younger brother that's same mom, same dad. And what happened was 5 years old. I don't really remember much of the divorce. I do remember it was ended up kind of being sad going back and forth between parents' house, and which I think is normal. I think most, this isn't some sob story. I think most people have been through some type of parents divorcing or some type of change like that. And what happened is my dad divorced my mom, or my mom, they divorced. They were both on the same page with that. Then what happened is a couple years later, we were going back and forth. My dad's a firefighter, so he was gone for 24 hours a day, back for 24 hours a day. And the way it worked is like we'd be at our mom's for like 9 days straight, and then we'd be 6 days in a row with our dad. And then we'd be with our mom 9 days straight, and then 6 days with our dad. And what happened is then at about, I was about 7 or 8 years old, my dad then met somebody that then came into my life. And I find this interesting as well. This is kind of just a side note, but I've been studying and learning about numerology recently, and I just find it fascinating. It's like a permission slip. And one thing that I found fascinating by it is that in 7-year clumps is when there's a cycle. We work in 7-year cycles. So it's funny because the first 7 years of my life, then my ex-stepmom was in my life from the second 7-year cycle of my life, from 7 to 15. After that cycle closed out, then she left. So 7 years, my ex-stepmom is in my life. So I'm 7 years old. My dad meets my ex-stepmom. It starts off kind of like slowly but surely she started to kind of get control. And then eventually she brainwashed us not to want to be around our mom. And what happened is every time we'd go to our mom's house, we'd come back. As my ex-stepmom started to get more power, we would then get in immediate trouble. We'd go to our mom's house for like 2 days. It changed because then we started to get we'd get in trouble when we came back, so we wanted to go to our mom's less and less. But what happened is we were seeing our mom like once a weekend, a month. We'd go there, we'd come back, we'd immediately get into trouble. We'd immediately be told that we did something wrong, and we'd get pain. And in a way, it's kind of like I don't know, it's not like an army. It's kind of like having an army sergeant as a stepmom. Plus, it was kind of like having somebody there that was also kind of like brainwashing you, literally, like giving you pain when you didn't do something they wanted to do, and just but seeing your own mom, which is kind of a weird thing to do that with. But I think she just didn't want my mom having any relationship with us, and she started to prime us for that. So my brother and I stopped seeing our mom so much. So then we were just kind of under the power of my ex-stepmom and my dad, and my ex-stepmom run their show. And what happened was at first it was small. It was little things that you probably be like, Aaron, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like, we had Nintendo and TV, and then all of a sudden she was like, I didn't have Nintendo and TV. They shouldn't have Nintendo and TV. So then my dad took our Nintendos and our TVs away. And then slowly after that, my brother and I went from, we weren't watching any TV. Then we were working outside a majority of the time. We moved into a house that had half an acre. So then we got pigs and goats in Vegas, by the way. This is in Vegas. We had pigs and goats and all these farm animals. And our life became just doing that, not allowed to have friends. It's almost like we weren't allowed to have much outside interaction, because then we'd see how weird it was. It became our natural reality to be locked outside doing chores all day and to be in that kind of mentality. My brother and I would try to make time go by just like we'd end up wrestling and just like playing outside. We'd get all our work done that we'd have to get done if like they went to work. And then what would happen is when they came, we'd have fun for a couple hours. Our version of fun, at least, which was like, I don't know, just playing with stuff, just like random stuff. Wrestling, or I forget, I don't even remember what exactly we do. We'd rake stuff, and then it wasn't the most fun, but it was just that's what we did, you know. And a lot of times we also, because of the way it ended up progressing more and more, she became more and more angry, more and more controlling, and it got to a point to where we moved into another house. And in this house, it was actually a pretty nice big house, but it was being completely remodeled. My brother and I lived in the side of the house that had to do with, it's called the mother-in-law's quarters. There was like a gate there, and my brother and I were given a bowl of cereal in the morning. We had like a gallon of milk, had to last us a week, and we had cereal, and then we had TV dinner at night. So the main reason I'm saying this is like we were very malnourished, barely getting the bare necessities met, and it was a lot of pain. And we had we didn't think we were worthy, obviously, from the way we were treated. We never really had a bed. I remember this recently, actually. We had these little fold-out things that we slept on, and that was how we lived for years until my dad eventually divorced her when I was 15 years old. And what happened is then it's a whole new world. My brother and I are allowed to have fun. We're allowed to have friends. We're allowed to eat the food we want. We're allowed to watch television. It was a whole new world. Allowed to play video games. And it was like amazing. And then I started having friends. I started not being socially awkward. And then 21, 22 came around, and I realized that I felt so resistant. All that pain of my past, I felt unworthy. I was labeled as someone that had ADHD because when I came out of that period of my life, then all of a sudden I had all this like enthusiasm and stuff because I was so excited. And I just, my personality, my brother and I had no personality between 7 to 15 years old for the most part because we were so kind of kept in that box. And then what happens is I was working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes, so it was a sales commission job. I realized that there was always someone in my life that was a woman trying to control me. I had this realization. And it wasn't after my ex-stepmom left at 15, one of my first girlfriends was trying to always control me. She didn't like how outgoing I was. There was always something wrong with me. She was trying to nitpick me. And then what happened is after her, that then went to, after I broke up with her, within 2 weeks I got transferred to a better shoe department, more expensive shoe department, which meant more commission at Nordstrom's and women's shoes. And this department manager was completely like my ex-stepmom. She would talk down to people. She was protected by upper management, so it was almost impossible to get her fired. But what ended up happening, there was always someone in my life that reflected that back. Then what happened is eventually I was taking Adderall as prescribed it, for focusing. The side effects of Adderall are you don't eat very much, you don't sleep very much. I was smoking weed at night so that I could sleep and I could eat. And I was kind of in this like hamster wheel of doing those two things. And I felt unworthy and I didn't understand why my life wasn't going the way I wanted. And then what happened is I felt stuck, I felt frustrated, I felt that pain. And then I came across the research of meditation, and it was like black and white. It showed that if you meditate, your life will begin to transform. That if you meditate, you will begin to reduce the amount of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and you will begin to increase the amount of dopamine, which is what you feel when you take Adderall. And then you don't also crash. So I was like, oh, there's all this positive benefit. So I started learning it. Within 2 or 3 days, there wasn't a huge difference because I was trying to control my thoughts and I was feeling a lot of resistance. By the 3rd day, I learned to observe my thoughts, to let the thoughts be there. And that was when my life really began to transform. I started to feel completely different about myself. I started to question the beliefs I have about who I am. I started to question this label of ADHD. I started to question this perspective that I had of the meaning I was given to the past. The pain of my past, I realized in that moment, I changed the meaning of that past, and then it changed the way that I related to the past. Because I saw that it led me to that point of spiritual awakening. They call it a spiritual awakening when you become aware that you are more than the physical ego construct. You are more than the thoughts you have. You are more than the past experiences you've had. And when you start to observe them, you start to separate yourself from that identity. And that's when my life really began to change. Within 2 or 3 weeks, I got rid of smoking. I'd never smoked weed. I was smoking weed daily. And all of a sudden, I felt like I didn't need it anymore. I started feeling so good. I just got rid of Adderall within that week and started meditating every day. I redefined myself. Instead of having ADHD, I realized I just have a lot of energy. And then I went on a scale of 1 to 10 with feeling about a 3 a majority of the time, 3 not so good emotion, 10 feeling amazing, to feeling about a 7 or 8 out of 10. I could not understand why I felt so good. And all it really was is it was a lack of resistance. I started to let go of that resistance. And what happened is then so many things in my life changed. That manager got fired within 2 weeks of learning meditation. Now, is it so egotistical that I think that I learned meditation, my manager left? You want to know the answer? Yes. I'm just kidding. The answer is, I think reality is a reflection. And once I let go of having that energy within my energetic field, it left my life. In a way, I completed the past. I became aware of how that served me with my ex-stepmom. And because I changed that meaning, it then left my life. And we couldn't get her fired because she was protected by upper management. All of a sudden, she got fired for something really stupid. But it's like that energy no longer served me. That left. I've never had to deal with a woman trying to control me again. And my whole entire life has completely transformed. I'm literally living my dream life. I travel the world doing what I love. I make videos every single day. I speak and help people to understand. And I help people get out of the prison of their own belief system, the prison of their own mind. And the way I do that is the same way that I did it myself. I teach people how to do that. And this has to do with raising your vibration. And when you raise your vibration, your life becomes much more magical. Positive synchronicity increases. You feel better. And that same, literally, I remember walking around my room a couple weeks after learning this, wondering, is this feeling ever, I wanted to write everything down because I'm like, I hope I don't lose this. I hope I don't lose this. Is this feeling ever going to go away? It never went away. It just became my natural base point. Now, of course, yes, there's still a fluctuation. There's still frustration that I feel sometimes. There's still lower vibrational emotion that comes in, but I don't stay there, and I have a higher sense of gravity now. And I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do caffeine, not because I'm better than anyone. I just believe that when we raise our vibration, we don't need any of those things. Our natural state of being is meant to be in that high vibrational state. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. This is a small clip from that episode, actually. If you want to see the whole entire episode, what you can do is click the link below. There's a podcast there. There's over 100 episodes on there. There is a 101 Raising Your Vibrational Fundamental episode that will complement this nicely. There's ones on plant medicine. There's ones on twin flames. There's ones on my spiritual awakening journey, part 1 and part 2. You'll see a whole bunch of episodes that I share, things I don't share on YouTube. If you want to check those out, you can click that in the top of the link below. It's called the Expand Your Awareness 2.0 podcast. I do episodes twice a week, and there's over 100 episodes already there. I think that you might end up just binging a lot of them. So that's the hope, at least. I think you're going to like them. Other than that, you'll see that below. And as always, peace, much love, and namaste.